The famous objection of the eater and the eaten. And this one is more for interest and just so that you guys know what the big fuss is about if ever you hear shubhat al-akil wal-ma'kul or something like that, the eater and the eaten. And as we said, this is considered one of the oldest, one of the most complex questions, objections, shubuhat that exist around the whole topic of resurrection and the afterlife. There are two variants or two formulations to this objection. The first one, not as complicated, it gets more complicated in the second. Imagine, and don't laugh, imagine, it's a theoretical question. Imagine that you have a person A who consumes a person B, who eats a person B. Okay? And then, so obviously person B has now died because they've been eaten. And eventually person A will also die. So the big question is, who will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring back when they are resurrected? Is Allah bringing back person A, the eater, or person B, the eaten, or both? It has to be both, because everybody has to come back, so it cannot be one or the other. But how does He bring back the person who was consumed? Okay? That's one. The second formulation goes one step further. The second variant of this big shubha goes one step further. It says person A is consuming person B. But imagine person A, the first one, the eater, imagine them being a disbeliever. And imagine person B being a believer, a good guy. So who comes back? One. Same questions, we're not going to repeat them, but bigger question, if there are parts of the believer in the body of the disbeliever, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can He still go ahead and punish the body of the disbeliever when there are parts of the believer in it? The believer should be in heaven. So what about the body parts that have been consumed by the disbeliever? What do we do with those? Okay, so this is the famous question, huge problem in the world of the afterlife, the topic of the afterlife. They refer to it as the problem of, or the issue of, the eater and the eaten. Of course, as is traditional in philosophy, they call them kind of mental games, or, you create a scenario. No one is really talking about a human being consuming another human being. No one ever has, considered this to be a realistic scenario. People are trying to come up with this scenario to push the thinking of how does this work if something like this were to happen. So I would argue, let's reformulate this question in a more modern and realistic way. We're not living in some barbaric land where people are eating other people. The modern formulation of this is that you have a human being. Let's take the second version. You have a human being who is a believer who dies. Their body decomposes into the soil and the minerals of the soil. Eventually, whatever substances have decomposed go back into the plants, and they are eaten by animals, or those plants are eaten by someone else who may be, for instance, a disbeliever. So eventually, the body of the believer has ended up in the body of the disbeliever. I would say or argue that this is a more modern formulation of the issues. How do we answer this? The big question is, which one comes back? Short answer is, they both come back. Which body comes back? Can it be the one that comes back that was eaten? Can it be a body that was before? We would say, if we want to play this game with anyone, we would say any body would work. Because, as we have argued again and again, what matters is not your body, what matters is your soul. Okay, so any body that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decides to, again, this is based on the assumption that you're coming back with a body of one of the bodies you had on earth, which we said is false. But if we want to play the game for argument's sake, we would say any of the bodies that that person had before they were consumed, it would work. So that's not the issue. The second point, the idea that when someone consumes anything, any food, when you eat an apple, a banana, whatever, a chicken, when you're eating something, your body does not actually keep the majority of what you're eating. The majority of what you're consuming is pushed out of the body. Only a small fraction, a very small percentage, between 3, 10, whatever, depending on what you're eating, the type of health you have, is kept in the body. 10 would actually be very high. Which means that the majority of what you're talking about, that body, even if someone were to eat the full body of another human being, the majority of that would not be part of the new body. It would be pushed out. Okay? That's two. See, we're going very far in entertaining this idea. The third point. Here, a lot of the scholars, when they're trying to answer this, as we said, it's for argument's sake. They are trying to preserve the answers they give. They're trying to preserve the original body as much as possible. But we don't need to do that. As we said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can come up with all sorts of ways to replenish the earth with new content, from which the bodies of those who are being resurrected can come. For instance, all the space dust that's landing on earth. I don't need that specific body or what it was made of, piece by piece. All I need is a body suitable for that soul. That's it. Of course, in addition to this, we could also add that the whole assumption that there is one body that you ever had on earth that is going to be the most justly rewarded or punished, meaning that it represents everything you have done with that body, unless you had a very short lifespan, that's impossible. Because we said the body is changing every second. There's no time when, if you really want to drill down to the level of a cell, you're going to see that cells are dying and being replaced every single second. So are we talking about a majority of the body being the same? And what's the percentage that you consider, acceptable to you? Like 50%, 70, 10? So this is why the idea, the whole assumption of this, that you're supposed to get back the exact same body that did everything right or everything wrong in this world, that the idea is wrong. The assumption is wrong if you understand how a human body functions. Okay? Let's take it one step further. We mentioned a verse in previous lessons. I didn't spend too much time on it. I want to mention it here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Yasin again, He says, "Is not He who created the heavens and the earth able to create the like of them?" So here there were two interpretations. We said the like of them as in the like of the heavens and the earth, or the like as in the like of these people in the afterlife. In other words, bring them back to life. This is where the interpretation becomes very useful, because the verse said, in any case it says like. It doesn't say Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will recreate the heavens and the earth. It says He will recreate like them. يَخْلُقَ مِثْلَهُ. Okay, so there's mithliyah. It resembles, it looks like. This takes it to another level. We have narrations from, for instance, from Imam Sadiq and other Imams, alayhi salam, that talk about this. They say, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, after the person has died and they will be resurrected, especially in the afterlife, will they have a body? And they are asked about the type of body. He says, yes, it will be a body. Does it have to be this exact same body? The Imam does not say yes or no. He says it will be a body resembling this one, so that if anyone were to see him or come and sit, because the Imam describes that they sit and they enjoy each other and they eat with each other. So he says when the other comes to see them, they recognize them, because the body looks similar to the one we have here. But clearly the Imam is saying it's not the same body. It's a body that looks like this one. Okay, so this takes out of the equation. So you combine the verses of the Quran with those narrations, and then we no longer have this issue of is it the same body or not. And then once again, as we said, this is all stemming from a very materialist understanding of what a human being is. It's not about the body, or which body is coming back, or which body is eaten. It's about the soul and the deeds of that soul. You did good, you come back, you are given a body, and you'll come back and you're going to be rewarded. You did bad, the soul comes back because the soul did bad, it's given a body, and it's going to be punished. That's the bottom line. In addition to all of this, if we use the example of modern day transplants. So let's say you have a human being who needs blood, a human being who needs a kidney, a human being who needs a body part. Let's say there's someone who's a believer who needs a body part from a person who is donating that body part and they are not a believer. Are you allowed? Yes, you are allowed. If it improves your life significantly or it helps you and it doesn't cause harm, of course you are allowed. You take that body part, you put it in you. Now, if you think that that person was not pure, so how can you take it? How can you take blood? How can you take a kidney? How can you take whatever body part you need? Because once it's in this body part, it is part of this person. You don't look at body parts. You look at the person because it's about the person. It's not even about the body. It's about the person, and the person is more than just the body. It's the body and the soul. And the same thing on the other side. On the other hand, so if you take this example and you take it to the afterlife, let's say a human being consumed another human being. So what? What's the issue? The issue is not that, this person who's supposed to go to hell, but now there is some body part from a believer that's in part of them. That's not an issue. If it's a part of them, then it's them. Just like on the other side, if there's a part of a disbeliever inside of a believer, it's part of the believer. We don't say this part is the believer and that part is the disbeliever. And we would not say the opposite. So this is specifically relevant to the second formulation of this shubha, right? When we said that this is a disbeliever consuming a believer, and now there are body parts in it, or the modern formulation, which is, you've eaten an apple, but the minerals and the soil that made up that apple belong to a believing human being. So now it's part of your body. So same answer to this.